Hey, how's it going? So, I wanted to talk today because I didn't make a video in a little while. And during my meditation this morning, it kept coming up, make a video, make a video. I'm like, do I really feel like making a video? And I thought about it, and I'm like, well, let's listen to what's coming in. So, here I am, making a video. I could have decided not to make the video, but I decided to listen to the guidance that I feel was coming in from my higher self. So here I am doing this. And then I thought, well, what will I talk about? And so I wanted to speak from the consciousness that I'm experiencing now, which is what all these videos I've made are. They're my experience coming to you from the consciousness that I am in this certain moment. It is always subject to change. What I say can change, and it may, as all things do. But this is where I am now. Let me share it with you. So, today, a friend pointed out a post to me, and it was from the Cuyahoga Valley National Park. And this is someone I've been camping with and been outside with and explored nature with. And he's part of a group that I created called Love and Light for Life. And he sees these posts I put up, and he tagged me in this post. And the post was made yesterday, and it was regarding the sandstone ledges in Virginia Kendall in Ohio, Northeast Ohio. And these ledges are beautiful. It's amazing to walk around in there. And they were formed over 300 million years ago. I did not know that until I read this post. So thank you, Jake. You know who you are. Anyhow, as you put your hand, it speaks about being mindful. So as you put your hand on a rock there, you can close your eyes and you can imagine the journey that these grains of sand had to take to form like they are at this time. To communicate and commune with the land is of great worth. It is extremely powerful if you allow it to be. And this reminded me of the sands and the fine dust motes, something that's often talked about in the sutras of Buddhism. I'd like to read to you the 6th vow that I was privileged to take. And this is what came up when I thought of this process with the rocks. Let me read it to you now. Throughout the Dharma realm and the realm of empty space, there are vast and great Buddha lands, as many as fine motes of dust. So these fine motes of dust reminded me of the grains of sand of these rocks. In the Dharma realms beyond description, in each and every land, in thought after thought, all Buddhas accomplish perfect enlightenment. Their number as many as fine motes of dust in Buddha lands beyond description. An ocean-like assembly of bodhisattvas circumambulates each Buddha, using all manner of skillful means of body, speech, and thought. I will sincerely and diligently request that they turn the wonderful Dharma wheel. This request will continue in thought after thought without cease. My body, mouth, and mind will never weary of these deeds. And this reminded me of something in the Tao Te Ching. It's a classic. I believe it is actually, I'm not 100% sure, but I do believe it is the second most printed book after the Bible. Now, you can fact check me. Like I said, I'm not 100% sure, but I think so. Anyhow, in chapter 4, what the Tao Te Ching talks about reminded me of this process of cultivation and erosion. So the cultivation, how I just read, this request will continue in thought after thought without cease. My body, mouth, and mind will never weary of these deeds. Meaning, I will constantly cultivate, and I will not be tired of doing so. And I will do this on behalf of all beings, not just myself. And it reminds me of how the Tao Te Ching speaks about things in chapter 4. Feel free to check it out sometime. It's a timeless classic. Lao Tzu is amazing, and what a wonderful, wonderful piece of writing he left behind. So, erosion comes up, and well, it comes up in thought when you read through that part. And erosion of those rocks, the dullness. Not like dull, oh, you're boring and bland, but dull as in softening. So the sharp edges of the rocks become smooth after time. Because our Buddha nature, our Christ consciousness, our whatever you want to call it, our love and light of the universe, our one love, our true higher self, our essence. This is not sharp. It is soft. Now, some people in this world will tell you that soft is weak. But I believe in the Bible it did state, and Jesus said, that the meek will rule the world. When you can face your vulnerabilities, you become much stronger. For example, me talking about all this stuff to you and about my life and these teachings on public YouTube, that feels vulnerable to me. And I never wanted to do it. But I'm listening to my true self. And that's why I'm here talking about this. So, when we practice consistently, it builds momentum. And that momentum can be very strong. It felt very strong in my meditation this morning, and I can't even put words to the true description of what happened. But that's okay, because I was able to just be with it. And I don't have to perfectly convey it to you. I don't have to talk it up. I just know that it is, and it was, and it's all good. A lot of people worry about their spirituality and how that works in the real world, right? The real world. You deal with worldly matters, but you are not attached to them. You are in this world, but you are not of this world. And when you can live in that truth, it is very profound. And you will want to stay in that truth, that is. So another thing that came up to me today was a dragonfly. Sometimes they come by during meditation. They've come and sat on my kayak often when I'm kayaking. It's cold out now, so I'm not kayaking, but I've had a really big one on my window when I was meditating. I wear this dragonfly often. I wear it because it was a gift from a mother who lost her son. And I was good friends with him for 20 some years, and we dated in high school. We were very close. He was my first love, and we had a beautiful relationship. We did have our ups and downs, and we were young, and we were drinking, and we were doing drugs, and there was a lot going on. But there's a lot of lessons that were learned. If he could see me now, he would be clapping. And I'm grateful for the memories and the love. So what the dragonfly reminds me of always is transformation. We are constantly transforming. Every morning we wake up, we can make a choice to do something new, to change how we view things, how we change, how we look at things. We always have a choice. The dragonfly, it's like looking past the illusionary facade of this physical reality that we think is reality. It's reality in this physical form, right? I mean, in reality, I'm not going to go walk in front of a bus, right? Why would I do that? But in truth, there's so much more to it than just this physical form. The dragonfly is the mind of the observer. When you watch your thoughts. And as you do this, it changes you. Conscious shifts occur in your mental body. The winds of change. The winds of change. Changing our habits. Changing our habits with simple things. I recall being a vegan for about 3 months at one point when I first started thinking I shouldn't eat meat. Then I went to vegetarian because I was on the couch and my stomach was just making all these noises and I just felt weak and I thought I better just switch to vegetarian. So I started eating cheese again, things like that. So, and that's where I still am now. And it was a gradual change at first, and then it just started feeling better to live that way. I never thought I would. I used to love eating meat, but I recall having this really vivid dream about everything being consciousness and all the messages I was getting from everywhere around that time. It was years ago, but it all just seemed to make sense for me. So I just listened and went with that. And it feels good. That's why I'm still doing it. The dragonfly also represents the elemental world, as in the spirits of land, earth, wind, fire, water. The land is alive. There's a lot more going on than we see. And I'm not claiming to see it all, but I have a small, tiny glimpse, which I am grateful to have. Try to tune in to the land. You'll be surprised. So, a big thing that comes up for me is Mark 12:31 of the Bible. And it's love others as you love yourself. In reality, there is no other. There might be someone doing something that you don't agree with. There might be somebody who's hurting and suffering and acting out of that hurt and suffer. That doesn't mean you have to make it your problem that they are treating you a certain way. But it also means that you need to see the capacity of love that is inside of them, because it can help them for you to see that. And that can be very, very nurturing helpful to not just them, but you, because we are all that one. There is no other. You may have to use skillful means and approach it differently at certain times, because a light can help you see in the dark. But if that light is too bright, it will blind you. So take it as it comes. Listen to your intuition. If you see something other than the light in the mirror, recognize it, but respond with love. That is always the test. Anything that happens in your life, you are here to respond with love. Someone's yelling at you, respond with love. Someone is hurting you, respond with love. Love for yourself and love for others. It is the key to this life. Practice it. You don't have to be perfect at it. It's a lifetime's work. But try. Currently reading a book and in a book study group for The Spiritual Quest. It's the teachings of the Ascended Masters by Elizabeth Prophet and Mark L. Prophet. In it, they often teach about the I am presence, your Christ consciousness, your Buddha nature. They ask you to say to your I am presence, beloved I am presence, help me. Just ask for help. Be sincere and see what comes up. So before you go off, stop, relax. Think of your I am presence and ask, how can you help me? Then try again. And then say thank you. This can work if you're looking for something, like if you lost your keys and you're frantic and you're looking around and you can't find it. It actually reminds me of something that my friend Joshua said in a video this week. And he mentioned his boss, an old boss he used to have, and she would tell him, hurry up, but don't make haste. And so this reminds me of something that was written in this book. I'll read it to you. The soul is destined for such a great and noble good. The soul must always hurry to this goal. That is, it can by every eternal good that is God, for it is for that the soul was created. And it says it's from Meister Eckhart, 14th century mystic theologian. So he says hurry, but in a hurry you don't have to make haste. If you do need to move with faster motion and movement, such as the planet Mars, when it influences in our daily lives, when it moves around in the correct position, we can feel more aggressive, more hasteful. If you believe it or not, these influences, they occur. There's another great quote in that book. It says it's by Unknown, but it's written as, what we are is God's gift to us. What we become is our gift to God. So this life and every breath that we take, it's our gift. When we see it that way, we don't suffer as much. When we start shifting our consciousness to see from this place. And what we become is our gift to God. My gift is this, that I'm able to talk about this, that I'm able to change and live from a different place in my life. And how I got there, it wasn't pretty, it wasn't easy, I am so grateful to be here. I am so surprised to even be alive by what I went through and what I put myself through and the choices I made. I put myself in dangerous positions often, but I no longer do that. For years now, I've cultivated a different lifestyle, and I am so happy to be here. Every prayer is always heard, and it is always acted upon, even if you do not see the immediate result, or even if the result is not to your liking. It is for your greatest and highest good. You hear about it all the times, blessings in disguise. Something horrible happens, and it shifts your whole world. It reminds me of the tarot card, the tower. In the picture, the whole tower's falling apart. But what comes after that is rebuilding. So it reminds me of the tornado that just passed through Kentucky and several other states. Let's pray for those families and all the people impacted. Entire cities were wiped out. Just needed to take a breath for that. But what comes of it? What will rebuild? What will strengthen? How will people grow and change from this? Those are the takeaways. So I've been practicing with a Zen practitioner for a long time, several years, and this might not be the best picture I've ever made, but it came from my heart, and I'm going to give it to him for Christmas. So, there it is. Yeah. So it's a man with an axe, and behind him is the marketplace, and he's walking back into the marketplace. And the 10 ox herding pictures are a way to look at the Zen training path. It's how the practitioner cultivates and practices. This picture that I made is the 10th ox herding picture, and it's depicted differently everywhere. My depiction of it, I'm sure, is nowhere. I don't know for sure, actually. I'm not sure. It probably is somewhere, but this is what came up. And I'll just go through them with you real quickly. The first one is searching for the ox. The second one is finding the footprints. The third one is perceiving the ox. The fourth one is catching the ox. The fifth one is training the ox. Sixth is riding the ox home. 7 is the ox transcendence. 8th is both ox and self-transcendence. 9 is reaching the source. And 10 is the return to society, or in this case, I drew the marketplace in the background. So you walk back in with the ox. And what this really means is you return to society with compassion and wisdom that you're able to hold, cultivate, and speak about, and help others to see that in themselves. When you see something in another, you see it in yourself. Always. There's a great shift that occurred with me 2 days ago. I fell down on the sidewalk. I scraped myself up, and I got back up, and I looked up and I saw the sun shining, and I smiled. I smiled because I was able to get up. This is something I've practiced for a long time, ever since I started falling years ago. In 2014, I had a surgery to remove a 10-centimeter tumor, and it left me unable to walk for a while. And I was crawling around trying to get my daughter's food, and do life. It was painful. It was suffering. And I made myself suffer more because I made myself the victim. Because I would fall and I would cry and I would get upset that I was falling, that I couldn't stand up on my leg. After some time, I became grateful that I was able to stand back up after falling. It's not how many times you fall, it's how many times you get up. To have that consciousness to change inside myself, to not look at myself that way, to not look at life that way, to react with love, gratitude. These are the keys to transformation. The day before that, the winds from the tornadoes, well, we didn't have tornadoes where I'm living, but the heavy winds were 60, 65 miles per hour. I was at a yoga studio with my daughter doing a Qigong class, and I looked out the window and the shingles from the roof next door were coming up. I took a walk that day and I saw all the trees shaking around vigorously, just moving so quickly, bending sideways. A tree from the neighbor's house fell over and broke through our fence. The dogs ran out. The dogs came back. It was all good. I went out and I had to use the chainsaw and cut the tree. And in doing so, I cut it in half right before the fence. And then took another log. And then what I did was I had to lift the top part of the tree. So it was half a tree. So I went to lift it and I dropped, well, it slipped a little and it was heavy and it dropped on my knee. And I had a swollen knee and a bruise there now, but a swollen knee for days and it hurt real bad. And then I attempted that walk and I fell. And so it was very painful. It was very difficult. But I didn't complain about it. I didn't cry about it. I accepted it. And I took care of it. Ice, heat, relax, put your foot up. And I'm okay. And I'm grateful for that. I really am. I remember years ago I used to build decks. And I used to pick up the 5/4 boards or the 2x8s and I'd pop them on my shoulder. And there'd be a guy behind me and I'd be in the front or other way around. And the way I would lift was I would lift with my arms and my hands, but I would use my quads. And I don't have muscle in half of my leg on my right side, and my quad is completely out. It's atrophied from the surgery because it shut down my nerves and did a lot of damage when they took out the tumor, which was attached to the sheath of my nerve. And it wasn't supposed to happen that way, but it did. And I wasn't supposed to walk again, but I am. And I recall lifting from my legs. And when I tried to do that with the tree outside, I couldn't. And that's why I dropped it on my good knee. Because I couldn't do what I used to do, just as I don't live in the mentality I used to live in. I remember being on the job and certain things would happen. I would get hurt here and there. For example, there was a man that I worked with who was a friend, and actually we had a fling for a while. And he had the spud bar, and we were digging holes. Now, it's a 90-pound spud bar. It's pretty heavy. We were digging holes next to each other for the stairs, and I came across a rock. And so I took the spud bar and I started hitting the rock because I had the post hole diggers, but they weren't doing any good against the rock, and I needed to break part of the rock off to get back to the dirt and clean out the rock and be able to pour concrete and put the post in. But the rock was in the way, so part of it needed to be broken off. So I took the spud bar and I was throwing it in there. Okay, all good, all done. Now, the fact that these holds were 4 steps means they were closer to each other than normal holds for the rest of the deck. And therefore, he was very close to me. And now he got to the rock and he asked me for the spud bar. And I gave him the spud bar. And I was finished and I was using the post hole digger. And when you use a post hole digger, you want to throw the handles down and let go. Because if you hold on to them, you'll get a lot of calluses. Even if you're wearing gloves, your hands will hurt. So what I did was throw it down, let go, and then pull them together to lift out the dirt and lift them back up. So I was doing that, and he was throwing the spud bar. And he threw the spud bar, and somehow it missed the hole, and it hit my hand. And it hurt so bad, and I ran and cried, and I went under the spigot outside and just ran cold water on it. But it was hurting so bad. And I don't know, maybe a half hour later or so, I sucked it up and started sanding the deck. There were labels on the wood, and we had to polish things up, so I just started sanding, and that wasn't so easy. But it's how you look at life. You know, do you sit there in agony and allow yourself to continue to suffer and drag it out? Or do you change and move forward? I remember getting very angry with one worker. He was walking around, I think it was a 2x6 or so. He had one on his shoulder and he was walking around and he wasn't paying attention. And I was using the table saw. I was slicing a 1x for a riser on the steps. And I was very close to the blade. I was on both sides of the blade and I was pushing it through. I was just on the end and it was like a 12-foot piece. And I was just on the end, and you have to be very careful. One slip and your hand or your finger can be gone. And he walked around the corner not paying attention and bumped right into the circular saw. And I threw my hands up, and luckily I still have all my fingers. But I was mad. I was very mad at him. I'm like, how could you do that? Why aren't you paying attention? You know, and instead, I probably should have been grateful that I was able to react in time and still had fingers. And then maybe talk to him about how can we fix this so that when you come around the corner, you can pause and look and see what's going on before you bump into me next time. That same guy was in the 1-ton truck with me. I had this 1-ton truck I had to pick up from the shop. He was sitting next to me, and we were on the freeway, and we were getting off the freeway, and all of a sudden the brakes weren't working, and there was already an issue with the truck to begin with, but we still loaded it up, and I still drove it to the job. And as we got off the freeway, there was it was filled with gravel, and there was a lot of weight in the back. And so I went to hit the brakes, and the brakes were going to the floor, and he's sitting next to me, and he's in the passenger seat, and his foot is motioning to hit the brake. He knows there's no brake there, but he's still motioning and doing that same movement because he's so scared he doesn't know what to do, and that's what he's doing. So isn't that an interesting reaction? I ended up pulling the e-brake, and we were okay. Probably wasn't the best for the truck, but I'm glad we were okay, and everything was okay. Nobody got hurt. Could have been a lot worse. So those are old consciousnesses that I speak about. I don't really think about them a lot, but this talk made me bring them up in my mind, and maybe it's good I spoke about them to get them out. But we are always speaking from the level that we are on, and that is always subject to change. Para samgate. It's an expression from the Heart Sutra. Just always going beyond. Gate, gate. Go, go. Go further and further and further. And that's what happens when you cultivate for a while. Your edges soften. You no longer feel this rush of anger coming in. And you're able to go back into society and speak from a place of compassion and wisdom. You know pain, you know suffering, but you also know how to tame that lion. Kind of like Daniel and the lions in the Bible, huh? He went in there and he was able to tame those lions. They did not eat him because of his faith and his sincerity. May we all learn from this. Take care. Namaste. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.